Hello, this is Terry from Fabric Junction in Sturgis, South Dakota. Today I will be showing you how to do a block that's called Road to Heaven. With this block, I break it down into sections. If you can see on the quilt here, it's very hard to kind of pick out, but here is the block. And we'll do it in sections. So the small section that's like a 4-patch, and then the larger section that has all the triangles in it. To get started, I lay out my pieces. The cutting instructions are on our website. So if you go there, it'll tell you exactly how to cut out for both this block or even the quilt. So we lay out our pieces in the order that we need them. And I know I need 2 more squares with 2 half-square triangles. So those are my pieces here. I need a half-square triangle for each of those. And then I'll need some other triangles. And I'll show you how we work with those as we get to them. But right now we're going to do what I'll call the 4-patch section. To do that, we take our 2 pieces of fabric and put them right sides together. Then I use a tool from Fonts & Porter called a 1/4-inch seam marker, and I line it up point to point. So here is this corner, and then there's a line here that I line up on this one. And then I pencil mark both sides. Once I've done that, I go to my machine, and now I'm going to sew right on that pencil mark. And if I have several of them to do, I go ahead and line up the next one and continue sewing. Once I've gotten down one side, I just grab it, pull my thread out a little bit, and sew the other direction. Now we need to cut them. And you can either cut them with your rotary, you can, as you can see, cut them with the scissors, and you just kind of go down the middle. If it's not exact, that's okay. The intent is to at least cut from point to point. Once they're cut, they need to be pressed open. And again, I use the press to the dark or the less bulky. Now when I use this technique, the blocks generally turn out the exact size I need or very, very, very close. But you can square them up. If you'd like, double check that you've got the right size of block. Trim off your dog ears, because you're not going to need those and you want them out of your way. Okay, I have my pieces ready, so now I want to lay them in the fashion they'll be in my quilt. So I got to make sure that I have my purple pointing inward on both of them so that this square looks exactly like this square. And if I was doing multiples, this is when I stack them up on top of each other, and I do the top 2, then the bottom 2. Up a little bit better. using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, again and line them up. And what this does for me when I sew them in this fashion, I keep them in their position to where they need to be when I finish the block. Now I just kind of hold my inner section together and I sew. If you have a trouble matching your intersections, go ahead and match them up and put a pin in there. If that helps you, that's fine. There is nothing wrong with that. It just, sometimes when we've been quilting for a long time, we get used to working without pins. So I have my second of my 4-patch ready. Now I need to do my triangle blocks. And to do that, I've already made my half square triangle, which I showed you how I did before. I put them in the position that I need them. Then I need a couple extra squares. So I line these up, one on top of the other, and I cut. I generally don't cut any of my triangles until I know I have all my half square triangles made. So that way I don't accidentally cut more of these than what I need. So once I have those cut, I put them in the position that they belong. Move this out of the road, and this time I'm going to stack them because I know both of these are going to look identical when I'm done. So there are my pieces. So when I sew these together, I like to start on the 45-degree corner and not on the other end, because I never know exactly how that's going to match up, but I know I can match up that corner and sew. So I take my pieces again and I'm going to match those up. I get it done, I open it up and make sure that yes, I'm on the right angle yet. Yes, that's looking correct. Okay, is that correct? Yes. Now I'm going to press, and in this case, to not create much bulk up in the corner, I'm going to press so that this section here is open, creating less bulk. I reaffirm that my parts are all in the right place, so now I take this one and once again I'm going to start on the 45 corner, and your points here are going to overlap. They need to overlap because that will eventually be your seam allowance so that you don't get too much of your white disappear on you. And this time I just open them and make sure that they look the same. That's the angle I'm after. And again, I press. And we need to get rid of the dog ears again. And then I can put it right where it belongs. Now I have an intersection here that I want to make sure that I cross. So this is the piece that I'll put on the top. I line up. I have a tendency to be off a lot when I cut, so I line up on this corner first, and then I let everything else kind of fall in place. And you can see I'm off a little bit there, but I've got enough there to do my seam. So, and I'm a little bit over on this end, but I just gently lay it, and then I pick it up and I sew that seam allowance. If I force it onto this edge, if I line everything on this edge here, the square will not be square. So I prefer lining up on this corner, easing it to where it needs to be, and then do my sewing. On this one, I want to make sure that I cross this intersection here so I don't cut off the tip. So if it's a big seam, it's a big seam. If it's a narrow, it's a narrow. The important thing is not to cut off that tip. And the same on this one. I line up on my back side, because the more pieces you put together, the more it stretches, the more it'll shift, the more things will happen. So I line it up to make sure that I'm about going to be as square as I can be. So now I have the two other blocks, and you see we did not lose our point, and that is our goal, is to not lose that little tip that's right there. Now I need to press again, and this will be one of those cases in which we're actually pressing to the lighter because it's the less bulky. Get rid of our dog ears. And now I place it in the square where it belongs. I turn and I look and I double check. I look at my pattern and I go, yes, that looks correct. And sometimes, no matter how many times I look and think it's correct, I'll get one turned the wrong way. That's the reason the seam ripper stays handy. So I line up my first two pieces. And then my next two. Once again, I open it up, I leave those attached, and then I still am correct. So now I fold the top to the bottom, and this time I match each one of the intersections. And like I said, if the intersection's giving you a problem, all you have to do is just put a pin in, get it lined up, and slip in a pin. Because I could feel that one just wanted to keep shifting on me, so it doesn't hurt. Slip in a pin, pin them all. Oh. Sometimes when you start with a little bit of bulk, and I don't care what kind of machine you have, sometimes it doesn't want to quite feed just right. There we go. So now you just see how I handle it when I get a little bit of bulk at the start of a piece. Some of that can be cured by having pieces already sewn on. Always pull my pins. I don't ever sew over the pin. I can line up my next one. It's not going to give me a problem. Nope. My seam. Line up my next one. Look to make sure that our block is correct. And the nicer the points, the intersections, the better. And that is our block. That is the Road to Heaven. This is the quilt that I did with it. And the fun thing about this block is that when you make them, show this on here, here is our block. When you make them, and as you give them a quarter turn, they create this beautiful design within your quilt. I hope you enjoyed watching our block today called Road to Heaven. Check out our website where you'll see the free pattern to make the quilt that we have today. And thank you for watching.